Welcome to this first digital webinar organized by COEJ. This is an area that COEJ is going into is completely new. And I think the COVID has enabled us to try these new ways of connecting with our community and undertake services for the whole European community together. And this is the opportunity that COEJ has offered us, where we start thinking of not thinking of just our Jamaats, but looking at us all Jamaats together. And this technology offers us to connect across Europe and of course across the world as well. But the content is much more focused to Europe. So I'd like to, the idea of this seminar and others to follow is to increase entrepreneurship within our community. And I would like to give my own personal example that I have always felt that entrepreneurship, or Veparipano as we call it in Gujarati, is in our blood. Our forefathers got it when they moved from India to Africa, and then from Africa when they spread to other parts, we had that, and we need to develop that within our youngsters. So on my personal story, although I'm a professional GP and a general family doctor, I have managed to use my entrepreneurship skills into my medical practice. So if I tell you, which is a secret which I'm sharing with you, at one stage I was managing a general practice of 7,000 patients by just half time, and my other half time was in medical politics. And at the time, people said to me, what management course have you done which enables you to apply this management in general practice? And I said, look, I haven't done any management course. All I know is that business is in my blood. And this is why I have this innate or ability to work through and apply these principles. And currently, I have nearly 12,000 patients and just 2 partners, whereas a normal GP would have an average list size of 2,000 patients. So that just shows my personal history. What we want to do is to enable people to be mentored into entrepreneurship and be supported. So we are looking for people who are going and willing to support others within the community and create a network of supports across with various skill sets. Now, what you might think is that you need to, the skill set of supporting and mentoring is not the content, it's much more processes. And there you don't, I can be a doctor, but I can still mentor somebody in a business because it's the processes which supports others. So don't.
We've lost you, Dr. Akbar.
You know, as Dr. Akbar was saying, you know, we are, you know, we've traditionally always been a community of entrepreneurs. You know, our forefathers, you know, our parents, you know, did it in Africa. And I think, you know, my generation, the generation below me, has been really the first generation which has, you know, been more professional than it has been entrepreneurial. And, you know, and that was great. And that's kind of what our parents wanted from us. But, you know, real wealth is built by entrepreneurs and businesses, you know, and it's important that, you know, especially in, you know, the current world, which is, you know, what we're all talking about, where, you know, employment is going to be challenging for some people for the next, you know, year. So, you know, the idea of this webinar is, you know, firstly for some of our panel members to talk through their journey, and also just for everybody to know, everybody out there to know that there's a great support network of various entrepreneurs, business people that, you know, you can all tap into. And, you know, all the panelists, you know, I know most of them very well, have had that benefit of doing that. And, you know, there is a great support network. And, you know, what I'm really happy on is that we've got 2 female entrepreneurs on the panel today as well. So this really is, you know, a chance for both the brothers and the sisters to both, you know, get some real inspiration from people that they can actually, you know, relate to. So Mohammed, is Durain on? at the moment?
Yeah, we can bring her in now.
Yeah, so Doreen is going to be our first speaker. And she is going to tell us a little bit about herself first. And, you know, Doreen's been doing some great work increasing her social media presence. I've seen some of the stuff that she's been doing. So it'd be great to hear from Doreen a little bit more about that. She on her panelist member is Akbar Datu. Again, I've known Akbar for many years. You know, what a lot of people don't know about Akbar is he's an amazingly successful businessman. So, you know, he's going to tell us a little bit about himself, a bit about his journey, but also, you know, the kind of challenges that he's had having established business and what he's had to do. And obviously, you know, what some of his clients have done. So I'll pass over to Akbar for a while. So Akbar, if you don't mind introducing yourself and telling the panel a bit about, you know, any advice you can give them.
Thank you, Arif. Assalamu alaikum. So my name is Akbar Datu, founder and CEO of D2 Legal Technology, D2LT. So maybe if I just give that context in terms of my journey to D2LT and what I run now. So I started off life as a computer scientist on the trading floor of an investment bank, UBS. What did I do there? So I built trading platforms and managing a team both in the UK and US as part of that. Now, a large part of the role kept bringing me back to the legal contracts of the financial products that I was then being asked and working on modeling and pricing these. I came across an in-house legal team that I felt was very paper-based. And I almost felt that at any moment they would be looking to bring out the parchment paper and quill. And there was really little appreciation of systems or data in order to optimize the various business decisions that the bank was making. And I guess more broadly, in the context of what I saw as an increasingly tech-enabled world and society, I felt that legal industry really needed to change. So I kind of woke up one morning and decided to become a lawyer, as you do. So went back to law school, requalified, worked at the Magic Circle law firm, Allen Overy, for a number of years. And then in 2011, after a bit of umming and ahhing, took, you know, what I recall as the brave step to try and combine the two skill sets across technology and law. And I founded D2LT in 2011. So what do? We advise banks, asset managers, now insurance and other firms on how to digitize their legal agreements and optimize what they do by having a better understanding of really what's contained in those contracts that they've put in place. And fortunate that we now work with some of the largest and well-known banking brands around. To give you some idea of what that would mean, for example, with one of the largest UK banks, we were asked to help them understand what Brexit means. They've got 50,000 agreements. Brexit will have an impact on them. And the terms of those agreements really need to be understood in order to facilitate the best decision to be made in the context of Brexit. So we were asked to come in and help them digitize their agreements and help that facilitate the decision-making they're about to make. Alhamdulillah, the business has grown from just myself in 2011. We now have offices across London, Frankfurt, New York, Charlotte, Hong Kong, and Sydney, and won a series of awards, such as first place at the FT, the Financial Times Intelligent Business Awards last year. So I guess, Arif, in answer to your question, I mean, what are we doing because of the pandemic? So I think the massive scale of the outbreak and its sheer unpredictability has made it quite difficult to respond. It's kind of been that slow developing crisis and hard to follow even the best laid emergency plans that we might have in place. And those were really designed for example, in the case of a natural disaster or something like that. So, you know, we very quickly realized that in a pandemic that's ruled by this unfamiliarity and uncertainty, that the most effective responses were going to be quite improvised. But we decided that it was going to be just far too difficult to rely on our senior management team to make all the decisions, especially with the different global footprint that we have, because we just wouldn't be able to collect the information or make decisions fast enough. So we took a very early decision to empower our local teams for rapid problem solving and execution, especially for matters regarding well-being of staff, clients, and their families. And, you know, we came across issues such as we had a team of 10 working with one of the banks in the US. Real issues in terms of their remote working equipment that they've been given by the client just wouldn't work in the face of a client that was very needy in terms of, lots of market volatility. And it really helped the fact that we were able to allow people to make decisions that they normally wouldn't be able to quite quickly on the ground. And then the next kind of place we went to really is summarized by two phrases that we aim to go by. The first of those being deliberate calm, and the second one, bounded optimism. So what do I mean by those? Well, deliberate calm, well, the landscape is changing literally every moment, and also finding that there's real significant changes to business models in terms of how people are having to approach things. And we felt that we really needed to be able to detach ourselves from the fraught situation around us, to create that space to be able to think clearly about the situation that's unfolding. And, it reminds me of one of the quotes from Wayne Gretzky, where he talks about a good player plays where the puck is, but a great player plays where the puck is going to be. And this really kind of led us into the next kind of phrase, as I mentioned it, one of bounded optimism. Through that deliberate calm and understanding of the impact through that space that we've given ourselves to reflect, and recognizing, what is unquestionably a very tough pandemic for a lot of people to deal with, but also recognizing the opportunities that this really creates in the longer term. And, we very much identified areas where there was a lot of optimism to be had. For example, digital signatures in the legal space, smart contracts. And we actually decided to this was the time really to focus quite a bit on some of our R&D efforts. And we have kicked off a very major initiative with, a world-class leading university in Imperial in terms of some of the academic research and linking that to industry that we've currently now taken on smart legal opinions. So we brainstormed, we anticipated multiple scenarios as to how they might unfold over time. And then as a team, we made a list of the 10 choices and actions that we could make today that would really make a difference later. And a couple of themes kind of came out that are probably useful to share. So we kind of this idea that distance is back, this idea that 93% of the world now live in countries that have imposed limits of entry due to the coronavirus, border restrictions, and a flight to local rather than global services or sourcing. We identified resilience as a key point. Resilience really needed in terms of your supply chain, but also resilience in terms of being able to cope with sudden loss of teams if they're unwell, even across your senior management, or in fact, the client stakeholders that we deal with. We established this idea that, look, this is going to be a contact-free economy for some time. And that plays very well into this philosophy that we have over the digital law, less paper-based law, digital signatures, and broader automation, and in our case, digitizing of the law. We also thought that there would be a lot more government intervention in terms of as part of the response, leading to greater regulation, which again very much brings you back to the need for the law. And finally, this concept of much more flexible workforces. And I have to admit, more flexible than we ever thought would be possible. Particularly in the banking industry, this idea that you could have teams of traders working from home. I think everyone's been pretty surprised about how manageable that's been. But also recognizing that, that will almost certainly need greater controls and regulation going forward. So that's the thinking that we've had to do. And, I think coming out of all of that is this very firm belief that although it's a terrible time in terms of the pandemic right now, I mean, there have been some silver linings, and I very much think that it's allowed entrepreneurs, both within existing companies or kind of smaller companies or would-be entrepreneurs, it's given us a period of reflection, creativity, and to innovate, to explore what's possible that I guess normally we don't really spend enough time doing. And it's really going to be this that's going to be the beating heart of the country as the various restrictions come away and people want their lives back. I mean, that's really where that optimism I think is. for the community, the UK and the world more broadly to come out of this, each and every one of us will be needed to innovate and show flair more than ever before. But, you know, change brings opportunity more than anything else. And the bigger the change, the bigger that opportunity is going to be. So, you know, coming out of this is that, you know, you may have been forced to take what is essentially an offline business online. You might find that your role is kind of unworkable in this kind of socially distanced world. You may have had more time on furlough or not being at work physically. So really, it's that opportunity that creates of itself to focus on the ideas that you have had, and maybe they've been on the shelf until now, and really kind of burst one way into the digitally led future. So, Arif, I hope that's helped in terms of some.
That's great. No, thank you very much, Akbar. Thank you very much. We were hoping to hear from Doreen. We are having a couple of small technical issues. Hopefully, we'll get it back in a second. In the meantime, I'm going to pass over to. I'm going to introduce Asad. So, for actually, I work with Asad, so I know him quite well, and I know that one of the things that he's been doing a lot of work on in the last kind of couple of weeks is digital marketing. Obviously, with us all being stuck at home, or kind of dependent on digital means to get out to our customers, I thought it'd be a great chance for us to first introduce himself, tell us a bit about himself, but also kind of talk to us about digital marketing and how we can all embrace that and use that in our businesses.
Hi, Arif. Can you hear me?
Hear you loud and clear, Asad. Carry on.
Cool. All right. Hi, guys. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So a bit about me. I'll keep it very, very, very brief. I'm an optometrist by trade, did optometry university. If you know the Asaria family in Harrow, you will know that we're all opticians. So there's about, I think it's like 45, 50 of us that are opticians, actually. So it was kind of, from when I was born, I was going to be an optician. But growing up as a child, my dad surrounded us with technology from a young age. So we always had tech in our house, everything from the kind of Commodore 64s to the Amstrad PCs and all that kind of stuff. And I remember Dad used to bring home 486 PCs from, young age, and, problems with them, and we'd end up repairing them and things like that. So tech became a big part of my life from a young age. And that kind of curiosity with technology kind of carried me through to even in my studies. When I did my optometry degree, I kind of was in my second or third year, and I decided that I actually didn't want to do optometry. I was good at it. I was good at biology and chemistry and whatever, but I couldn't see myself, spending the rest of my life testing eyes. Nothing wrong with the career. It's a really great career, and I actually did it for about a year or so. But I could see, my future was in tech. So finished my degree, and then started a reseller business when I was 23, so in 2009. And we kind of grew that over 5-6 years. And then from there, started a couple of other businesses, went outside in the kind of world of fashion in an eyewear business, and then decided that, fashion wasn't the right business for me and the right profession, and ended up going back and focusing on tech. In the last few years, we've still continued our reseller business. We've still got that. And as well as that, we've gone into a few other businesses. So in the mobile accessory space, I've started a mobile accessory brand called Noli, which we're actually launching in July. And I've started a sustainable technology business with Arif, which is the one he was referring to. And we've got a few other investments in the kind of mobile accessory space. That's me. I guess in terms of my business background as well, something to note is I started a business in the last recession, so in 2009, reseller business. And so kind of done this before, and it felt a bit like Groundhog Day, actually, when the world started coming and crashing down on us in the last couple of months. And in the same way, I guess, we looked at what was going to work in the last recession, and we would, I remember at the time we were just hardcore sales. We'd go and sell to anyone pretty much. And we did a lot of sales actually in the community at the time. We did sales, direct sales, field-based sales, telesales. In the same way, in this recession, very early doors, when we opened Click, and Click actually launched a week before the coronavirus. So great timing. And we just felt like, what do we do? Do we just sit here and wait and just hope for the best, hope this kind of clears, or do we do we actually do something about it and try and get out to customers? So the first couple of weeks were obviously a little bit challenging because, you know, people were still kind of thinking about how they operate their businesses and stuff like that, and especially operating a B2B model where we're actually trying to sell people new technology, even though it's refurbished or connectivity, is obviously challenging. So the first couple of weeks we're kind of reassessing, and then we started to build our funnel. So you know, we basically thought about all the different kind of channels, so whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and we started to build the right content to try and reach customers across the different channels. And alhamdulillah, like over the last kind of 2 months, we've been able to build quite a, something's happened to the screen. We've been able to build the startings of what is a digital funnel for the business. And we're starting to see good leads come through on the Facebook side of things. We're starting to see leads come through on LinkedIn for organic activity. We've done 3 webinars. We're going to do a 4th one next week. We've just stayed super active on everything. And like in some cases it's worked, it's not worked. We've had lots of learnings from it. But it's that data, the beauty of digital marketing, especially compared to like traditional forms of marketing where, you know, I remember, you know, when we had a retail business, we would do newspaper adverts or billboards or whatever it is. You can't measure nothing. Whereas with digital marketing, you can actually measure every single, you know, minutiae of detail. So every click that you pay for, you can measure all the way through to the conversion funnel. If you set up all your pixels and your Facebook pixel and your LinkedIn pixels and all that kind of stuff correctly, you can measure everything. And as long as you've got the right creative, of course, if you've got the right offer, then it will resonate. And so what we found in the last few weeks, we worked with O2 to create a SIM-only offer, which was focused on the working from home customer. And that we picked the right offer for the environment and we put it out. We got a nice creative together using video and still imagery, and we started to generate a lot of leads. So digital marketing for me now is going to be the way in which that we build this business. And I think, you know, with Click, especially, you know, a lot of our competitors are actually very traditional, so they have direct sales teams, whereas we want to really push our lead gen through a digital channel, automate as much as we can in terms of processes, keep our staff costs down, keep our, you know, leads coming through, optimize all the digital channels, because that's where we believe our customer is. You know, they're online, they're on their phones, they're on, you know, they're interacting through all digital means, and especially the type of business that we're trying to target. So hopefully lots of learnings for all of you listeners at home or wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for taking your time out and listening to the broadcast this evening. And hopefully there's lots of insight that you can pick up from all of us today. Thanks, Arif. Back to you.
Thanks. I mean, you know, I think what Asa said is, you know, really interesting. He was talking about some of the content, and, you know, content doesn't need to be professionally produced. You know, you can produce it yourself. You know, there's those tools that you can use. You know, and actually somebody who's been doing a great job, and I was introducing her before, was, you know, Doreen. Doreen's really been working hard on her kind of, you know, her social media presence, you know, and she's, you know, and it's excellent stuff. And, you know, Doreen, just tell us a little bit about yourself firstly, but also what you've been doing, and also, you know, really interesting how you've been doing it, and, you know, and explain to people, can they really do this from home themselves?
Sure. Can you hear me?
We can all hear you loud and clear.
Great, excellent. So, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Doreen Hirji, and I'm really delighted to be joining you all today. So just a bit of background about myself. So I have a mixed background of web development, sales and marketing. And then within the last 10 years, I developed a love for properties as I was exposed to it through my family. So, you know, I pursued my real passion, which is property investment and the strategies, different strategies. And then since then, we've built a portfolio. I now manage it, and we've now embarked on helping others with their property sales, their property journeys and investment needs as well. And I specifically deal with distressed sales in the UK and in central London as well. So, and I'm also a full-time mother of 3 young kids under the age of 10. So it's been a bit of a challenge to continue my personal development with my responsibilities as a homemaker. But about a year or so ago, I decided that I really wanted certain qualities and skills within myself, and wanted to be a role model for my kids to follow. And I really believed at that point that the best type of investment was to invest in myself, and also was very much inspired by my husband, Zamir, who left his job at RBS 7 years ago to take a massive jump and become an entrepreneur, and has now come a long way in working in his personal branding. So So I started creating videos with the purpose of sharing the learning that I was gaining from various sources. And it wasn't until Jan 2020 that I decided that, okay, my new year resolution is to come out of my comfort zone and to really put myself out there. And I felt really liberating. It was a liberating experience for me. And that's how my journey started. And yes, like you said, Arif, you know, all I needed is my phone and some great content. So and I've now also launched my YouTube channel. So I'm really just at the beginning of the journey myself. But so in this new norm, I think really the first and most important step going forward is really to accept the situation and accept that for the foreseeable future, this new norm is going to be our new reality. And the acceptance part is crucial. And once we've gone through the steps of acceptance, I think the next key thing really is to work towards a real change of mindset, because a lot of traditional businesses don't believe in personal branding or hasn't discovered personal branding yet. So it's really the one thing in the new norm that's going to either make you or break you. And to really how to have that positive mindset in such a negative situation is really key. So now we're ready to do this. How can we change our marketing strategy if you're an existing business, or how to start a new business, and how do I promote myself? So one of the most powerful a marketing tool that was already out there actually pre-COVID, was really to put yourself out there, and now it's become even more relevant to be more visible, to build your personal branding. It's not easy, I must say. For me, it was really hard to take that first step, especially if you're not used to it. But marketing yourself, keeping yourself in the eyes of your target audience in different ways is part of the new norm. And so what do I mean? I mean, you know, you're able to connect with people directly in their homes through videos. And we're really lucky that we live in the age of the internet. So you're building a relationship directly with your audience and throughout the world. And that is really powerful. And slowly, you'll be able to create that trust relationship between your audience and yourself. But how do you do that? You create some engaging content and come out of your comfort zone. So by adding value to your target audience, by creating content with the intention to impact, with the intention to create value, only when you create value for others will other people will really see the value in you. And so if you have a reason to drive that dialogue, position yourself as either top of mind in your particular industry, it really helps you to form the relationships, not just to form them, but also to grow them. So I think I would say that the content that you put out there has to have some value to your audience. You have to be able to make that connection with your audience and resonate with them. And you know, the more you do that, the more your audience starts to get to know you, starts trusting you. And the goal is to create a situation that is a win-win situation, because, you know, at the end of it, once you've made that connection of trust, you know, you get the sales, you get the right customers, and you're there to provide a solution to their problems. So you see yourself as a problem solver. So, you know, it really is about building your network and your relationships online with this new norm, with social media being such a powerful tool, you know, especially now. I've seen on LinkedIn, for example, a lot of businesses has taken this crisis, and obviously despite the negativity, and obviously without forgetting the sad reality that some are facing during this pandemic, they've fought through and found creative opportunities to boost their branding, or just to set up a small business online, or just to rejig their business strategies, and have really gone doing videos and reach out to more and more people around the globe. So I think that the bottom line is that if you add value to people's life, then, you know, you don't have to go out to do any selling. The selling happens by itself.
Great, thank you so much, Lorraine. You know, really inspirational words. So our next panelist is Azim Morali. So Azim's got a great kind of top-down view of the world of business, the startup world. So Azim, give us a bit of introduction about yourself, but also tell us with your experience and what you're seeing. There's a wide range of businesses across the community, and people are considering businesses. So what's working at the moment? What business sectors are looking good? What do you think is going to be what do you think is going to be interesting for the next year? It'd be great to have your thoughts.
Thank you, Arif, and salam alaikum to all of you. My name is Azim Merali. I'm a partner at Grant Thornton. I head up the private equity group and also run the UK transaction services practice. It's interesting, Arif, when you introduced the concept of entrepreneurship, as did Dr. Akbar, because the natural inclination about saying somebody's an accountant and has been a chartered accountant is, it's not very entrepreneurial. But actually, Grant Thornton has always been an entrepreneurial business. I run my own practice. I have a team of 11 partners. We have 150 people across the UK, and essentially, I have the responsibility of looking after those 150 people and reporting to the leadership board around our activities, around our performance, and around delivering a level of financial performance. And we live in a transactional world in our business, and transactional is about businesses making acquisition, raising capital, disposing of businesses. And as you can imagine, post, just as COVID hit, in the same way that when 9/11 happened and when Lehman's happened and when Brexit happened, you get a market dislocation. And, if you're running a business, your primary focus is continuing to generate revenue, but also you've got an important resource base called cost. So you're not just advising and supporting clients, but you're having to make decisions about your own business. And as a partner in a broader firm, we're having to make decisions about the wider business. So it's important. I'll come back to that in a second in terms of some of the things that we've had to consider and do and deliver as actions. But I guess one of the things I was intrigued to listen to Akbar around the various lenses that he and his colleagues have applied in terms of assessing situations, assessing client situations, and supporting clients in making those decisions. I guess from our standpoint, when we're out looking at what are the businesses that we want to advise, what are the businesses that have long-term success, it's a combination of looking at the end markets that those businesses operate in, and also applying a lens to assess the business model. And the lenses that we apply are really down 6 areas. Really looking at the operations of the business, looking at the customers and suppliers, looking at the people and other resources. Fundamentally looking at working capital and liquidity, looking at the impact of technology, and the impact of regulation. And in many ways, very similar to the lens that you apply to your clients. And I guess what we've seen certainly in the last 3 months is how not just local industries but global industries have been completely turned on its head. If I tell you that outside of financial services, the largest industry globally is that of travel, tourism, and hospitality. Travel and leisure. Can you imagine if any of us are asked to step on a cruise ship? Would we ever think, if you've been on a cruise before, would you ever step back on a cruise ship? Can you imagine if we're asked to get on an airplane for social, personal reasons, or get on an airplane for even business reasons? So the whole kind of travel, tourism, leisure, hospitality is a sector that certainly we're in one part of our business we're seeing huge amount of opportunity, but that part of our business does a lot of restructuring and insolvency work, and it's not necessarily a sector that we see is growing. But within that, there are definitely going to be opportunities because people want to travel, people want to get out, people want to return to normality, and so the question is how do we find opportunities to service specific subsectors or niche subsectors within travel, tourism, and hospitality. I guess at the other end of the scale, you would say that the obvious industry to get into now, or if you're in that industry, is healthcare. Whether you're in some kind of healthcare services, whether you're providing pharma, some of our brothers and sisters have been very successful in a very short space of time in terms of achieving success in PPE and in medical devices. But there are certainly, you go back to Akbar's lens, applying the notion of contact free as a really important lens to look at business models. Many healthcare businesses, if you're a dentist or if you're in the dentistry sector, in the last 12 months, we advised on 3 very large dental transactions. But today, some of the dental chains have started to reopen literally as of this morning. And some of the new laws that have been brought in terms of how you control the gaps between treatments and what you have to do to disinfect and whatever, those businesses that were perceived as successful, resilient, got public government funding, have got a real major overhaul of their business and operating model. So I think that's a really interesting thing. So for us, the point I'm trying to make is looking at end markets, but also applying a business model overlay and understanding how those key areas that I mentioned or that Akbar mentioned in terms of the lenses. And maybe Arif, after the call, we can share some of these tips with the audience, because I think simple things like that are really helpful and important to help. A couple of other areas that we're seeing a lot of interest and activity, as you would expect, and that's around technology. Anything that's tech-enabled, whether it's in delivering customer engagement, customer contact, or it's financial services, or it's healthcare related. Today, if you'd have said to me, or if I said to you, any of you, that we're in the middle of an IPO of a really interesting business going onto the public market, you'd have thought I was mad. But actually, a really interesting business where it's combining technology and healthcare, particularly around mental health, so that children can access mental health services via quite a simple but really effective business model, where there is a significant investment in technology, but equally there is what traditionally people would expect as face-to-face service, is one that's rapidly getting traction and be very successful. And then the final sector where there's been a lot of activity, some of our community members and people we know have been involved actively is in the education sector, whether it's delivering face-to-face or owning education or providing training and support. Again, end markets delivering education content and services is great, but it's the delivery model that's having to change fundamentally. As I said, I'll come back to some of the things that we're doing as a business around how we operate and how we deliver client service. And I think it's interesting for people to consider, on the one hand, how we change our business model in terms of flexibility, use of technology, and the use of going away from a standard thinking, which is, if you're in my case, if you have an office-based environment, you need some premises, you need desks, you need chairs, you need support staff, you need physical premises, and you need to go and attend client premises and deliver. Probably the last 3 months have taught me, and I consider myself a little bit in the technology world. It's taught myself a fundamental lesson that on the one hand, being in lockdown can be challenging, but on the other hand, actually, I think it's made me more efficient. And in our team, we've delivered just as much in terms of volume of work as we would have done in a normal 3-month period, maybe even more. But that's because we've been forced into it. So how do you make sure that you pick up the learnings and the lessons and the things that we have perhaps been forced to do and turn them into what we should be doing? So in our business, we sadly are having to look at our cost base and are having to make some tough decisions about letting people go. But that's about then making sure that we repurpose what we have and the services we need and the services we provide to our clients in a more cost-effective and efficient manner. But equally, that creates opportunity for people, because some of the services that we might have otherwise employed people, we can consume on a flexible basis. So, where we can outsource those services, be that simple things. I mean, Doreen and others have talked about the use of digital media, digital content. We did have a big digital marketing team. We reduced that size considerably, but the ability to then go out to market to source best of breed and to be flexible and delivering those solutions, because it's important we as a business continue to do that. So I think, like I said, I thought I was at the lead end of making sure that we managed our costs and delivered efficiency. But even the last 3 months have taught me that we can move a hell of a long way for good benefit to our business. And in doing so, those who, it inevitably challenges some people, but creates opportunity for others. And I think we have to challenge ourselves, as we have had to do. We all have to challenge ourselves and say, how do we do things differently and achieve the same, if not better, outcomes? And I think entrepreneurship is about that. It's about challenging yourself. And, as I said, I consider myself an entrepreneur, and being asked to take more and more risk, but hopefully with better and better result, I hope. So I'll hand back over to you, Arif, and happy to take questions later.
Thanks very much, Azim. So, one of the great things about, the last few years is that, if, one of these talks, 10 years ago would have been, 6 men with slightly grey hair talking. So it's great that, we've got another inspirational sister, Sumaya, on this call as well. So, Sumaya, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey, your experience? I think we'd all really love to hear about it.
Yeah, thank you. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sumaya Juma. I'm the founder of Made with Love. So I'll just give you a little bit of background about myself. I graduated in doing photographic arts, but soon after my graduation, I decided to take a different route. I went into the teaching world. So until today, I'm a special needs teaching assistant. Along with that, about a year and a half ago, in January 2019, I started my own little business called Made with Love. And what this is about is children learning to cook and understand the foods from the Quran and Hadith. So the main aspect is to be able to teach children to connect with Islam through a fun and interactive way. And because I have so much experience with the children and the passion of cooking, I decided to combine these two together and start this business off. So initially at the start, I was holding cooking lessons from my house for children between the ages of 3 and 11. And this went off very nicely. Alhamdulillah, there was a very good response, and lots of parents wanted to register the children, and lots of children were coming back to the classes again and again. And because of this demand and requests from parents, I decided to stretch out and do classes in another venue as well. So within the first year, I was doing classes in 2 venues. Alhamdulillah, it was going really well, and I was requested to host some of my classes in other venues in London. So I was invited to the Haydri Jamaat, I was invited to the Stanmore Jamaat, and also another charity called Al Ain. I was invited to their venue to do one of my classes. So coming to the end of my first year, where I had a lot of good response and children were happy, they were going home learning a fair bit and remembering and connecting it with everyday foods that we eat. Coming to the end of my first year, Corona comes into our lives, and shortly afterwards, we are hit with the lockdown. So initially, I have a lot of anxiety and fear because I'm now in an unknown place and not knowing where to and how to take this further on. So after some encouragement from friends and family and doing some research, looking at how other people have done cooking shows, I decided to launch a series of online cooking classes. But it wasn't just simply showing children how to cook. I decided that I would choose very simple recipes with a handful of ingredients and ingredients that we usually have within the house. And with that, I will continue to teach the children the benefits of the food in the Quran. So when I used to have my physical classes, there was two parts to it. They would cook the food, and then afterwards we have a craft session where they would learn about the benefits and in an interactive way, which they would remember for later on. So I couldn't do the craft session so much online, but I definitely did the cooking part of it, and alhamdulillah, I got a very good response, and I was continuously getting requests of having more and more lessons. And the children, until today, children are the mothers are sending me messages and pictures of their children that they've done the classes, and the main feedback I've received is that it was really simple, a really simple recipe with very few everyday ingredients, and on top of that, the children are leaving the lesson learning what the benefits of the food are from the Quran and Hadith, and that was the main passion of me starting this business of mine. So along with the classes, I was starting to take baking orders, which also contained the food of the Quran. So I upscaled my baking massively. And the way I did this was posting a lot on my Facebook and Instagram pages. So I would regularly post pictures of what I'm doing and what is upcoming, and reviews that I've received from happy customers, and also taking feedback on what they might want me to cook for them. Because I was receiving a lot of orders, we decided to offer a weekly doorstep delivery, which would take place on Saturdays. So within the week, I would take the orders, and I was doing a weekly delivery, and it was going really well. Alhamdulillah, during the Ramadan period, I was getting quite a lot of orders. Every week I would be going to about 10 houses to drop them off, and still going through that. So alhamdulillah, the process of going online, although I was fearing it because of the going into an unknown, alhamdulillah, it's taken off really well. And because I was able to persevere and keep that passion and remind myself what my goals were, it's taken off really well. And I'm definitely going to continue to post and be active on social media. I think this is the way forward, because this is like becoming the new norm of connecting with your customers online, and being able to it's like an instant connection with them. You're receiving their reviews. They can see you can see exactly the pictures. They can see your pictures, and this is the social media side of things has really picked up in my business. So even when lockdown is eased more, I still plan to carry on my online classes and my baking, taking orders online. And another thing is, because I've had so much demand from even outside of London and outside of my delivery zones, I'm thinking of going into like postal deliveries and potentially opening up a YouTube channel. As alhamdulillah, I got over 1,000 views on my videos that I posted on Facebook and Instagram. But I did find it a little bit tricky uploading some videos because of the length. So I think YouTube is the way to go. So just a little bit of advice for those who are thinking of starting a business, or those who are in the very early stages. I'm still in the very early stages myself, and this is definitely a learning journey for me. When you come across something like a big, like how we are in this pandemic, everyone's fearful of what's going to happen next. Nobody knows. The main thing is to remind yourself of what was the passion that initiated you to start your business off, and to keep that perseverance going, and don't be afraid to take that step forward. I mean, there will be times where you will make mistakes, and that's okay, because that's all you learn from that. And yeah, so just think outside the box and be creative. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Great, thank you so much, Samir. That was was amazing. So guys, we're going to move to the Q&A part of the evening. On the right hand side of your screen, you should see a little chat bot, and that's where you can ask questions. So a couple of the questions that have been asked is around starting a business at this time. What advice would the panel have for people, and what resources are available for entrepreneurs? And Drain is going to be joining us as well again. So maybe start with Akbar. Any views on kind of what people should be starting at and what resources are available to people out there?
Sure. So I think I'll start firstly with, I think it's quite nice to get kind of some inspiration and keep the excitement up. It is a very exciting step in terms of setting up. And certainly some of the things that I found quite useful are some of the books and material available in that regard. So people may have come across some of these books, but things such as The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. There's a fantastic book called 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. But there's one particularly that I've liked, particularly relevant at the moment, called Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb, who talks about creating something that naturally gains or works still within a kind of disorder environment. But then coming back to kind of more specifics, I mean, I think I wouldn't underestimate the importance of talking with your friends, to people maybe in the industry that you're targeting, running ideas past them, talking through the model, talking to potential clients or clients. And I can't emphasize how invaluable that was, just to it's just going to be so much more effective getting a wide variety of opinions and thoughts. Some will be positive, some less so, but those really allow you to kind of make the mistakes on paper before you start, and hopefully really you'll get the big decisions right that way. And of course there's going to be some decisions that maybe not the most optimal route, but they're going to be kind of not really kind of matter in the grand scheme of things. And in terms of the tools, I mean, I think if you go to places like gov.uk, they have a lot of good kind of basic materials to help you through basic company formation materials. And really then it's going to be around spreadsheets, or to help kind of pull out kind of what the costs will be, and basic financial planning more than anything else. But I think talking to people to get those views and ideas and stress test them really is the key to it.
Great, thank you very much, Akbar. And Darain, I know that we were talking before, and you were talking about the importance of people who maybe are in employment having what's now called a side hustle, basically. So talk us a bit through what for the people that don't know what that is, and what's your advice to people.
Okay, so a lot of people, like you said, they rely on just the one income to survive, and usually that's when times are bad, then your sustenance stops, and that's the time when you really feel that challenge. And some people at the moment really heavily rely on the furlough income as an employee to make ends meet. And yes, it can become challenging for a lot as a result, in terms of paying mortgages and other costs that are ongoing. So, and we're really lucky that we live in a country where even during a crisis we still get some sort of income. But you just never know what tomorrow is made of, and you just it's very important to be prepared for the worst, and to find a better way forward in terms of your income. So I'd like to believe that having alternative forms of revenues is going to protect yourself, protect your family. And I'm talking about passive income, some active income as well. Warren Buffett says that if you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. So, it's really, if you think of your home stability as a castle with 6 or 7 pillars, and, if you have different streams of revenues, if 2 or 3 of them, are broken, your castle is still up there. But if you've only got that one, then you crumble, your castle crumble. And from that perspective, I think, it's very important. And especially now there's no job stability. The level of unemployment will rise after the full unlocking, with lots of redundancies just waiting to happen. And a lot of people through employment have developed transferable skills, You know, it could be presentation, the ability to pitch yourself, selling, leadership, customer service, anything that you have acquired over the years can be useful in your future journey of opening your own business. And things will go wrong. I think you need to be realistic. You need to expect that, but more important is to really reinvent yourself in the new norm, and just to be creative, and like Sumaya said, thinking outside the box and being creative by keeping positive and not putting all your eggs in one basket. So the type of things that I was referring to are things like, property. I would talk about property because that's my thing, having that passive income through property. It could be shares and stocks. You can get somebody to do it for you, or you can do it yourself. There's lots of platforms available out there for that as well. There's online business has boomed, as we can see. Amazon's doing really, really well in this market, and a lot of retailers have also gone online selling now. So that's very important to think of. Either you can have your own website where you can pretty much sell anything and everything, or you can be an affiliate linking. So if you want to sell through someone else's product, it could be it could be through Instagram or through Amazon itself. You can take that option as well. Nowadays people even sell knowledge, sort of, if you're an expert at in a particular field, and if you're able to teach something and communicate in a way that is consumable, then you're an expert at it as well, then you can even sell training online nowadays. There's so many portals out there to be able to enable you to do that. And obviously there's social media ads. Like I said, there's YouTube. You can make a revenue out of YouTube. Actually, I spoke about making videos earlier. So as it could be as a marketing tool, like I mentioned earlier, but it could also help you make some income on YouTube as well. And you can, there's so many ways of doing it. You can just type on Google ways of making income on YouTube and social media. You can become an influencer. So basically what I'm trying to say is that if you think of a strategy that enables you to have multiple streams of income in a bad time, you're covered, because you've got other revenues as well coming your way.
Great. And I think there was a question on resources, and I said I know that you have been using freelancers a lot recently, and using Upwork. So I think when people think about branding in a new business, tell people about that and how that's working, and what resource it is to you. Oh, I said you're on mute.
I should know technology, right? I think in the old days, you'd have to go and hire people, marketing people. Everyone would need to come in house. You'd have to spend the whole kind of recruitment process to find the right person, and court them and whatever, bring them in. And it'd be difficult to find the right people, and people were often the kind of point of failure for the growth of the business. Nowadays, with the kind of rise of the gig economy, so freelancers, you can access freelancers not just from the UK but anywhere in the world. So we've been using a lot of different freelancer platforms like Upwork, Fiverr, Engineers for Pioneers. There's loads of them, and happy to share them after this webinar as well. But we've used it for literally everything. To give you an idea, Click is basically 3 people right now, me, Arif, and one other guy. And when it comes to social media strategy, our webinars, our graphical content, our social media ads, everything has been done through freelancers. And these guys, you basically, I did a video, went up, we put up on Facebook yesterday on Facebook ads, and that video was done by a lady in Venezuela. Cost us $70, and it would have cost us in the UK probably like £300-400 to actually create. So whilst I don't want to take employment away from this country, but at the same time, there's these amazing platforms that your business can plug into, and all you need to do is put a good brief up, put what you want to create, be very clear with what you're trying to achieve, and then it's really cheap to go and get these people. These platforms don't actually cost you anything. They actually take the money from the freelancer, so they take a 20% or a 10% cut. So it doesn't cost you anything, and you can spend as little as much as you want. So if we're doing less skilled work, we're actually using people in the Philippines or in India or wherever it is, a lower rate. So we kind of like tailor the way in which we use the platforms for different things. And likewise, we've used developers from India as well. So freelancer platforms are a really good way to grow your business. Try them out, use it. There's no cost of doing it. Get online, your next job, stick it on there, and you'll see that it works. And it's so straightforward. You'll get responses straight away. I've probably listed about 20 things on Upwork in the last kind of 2-3 weeks. And once you get into the habit of doing it, then it's really easy to then learn what works best and how to attract the right talent and stuff. Thanks, Arif.
Thanks, Asad. Azim, I'm going to come to you next. We've one of the questions around cash flow management and how businesses which may have been profitable before the lockdown are now struggling. What advice have you got for like prudent cash flow management? How can people survive through this next kind of year or so where cash flow might be tight or challenging?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the starting point is actually understanding whether businesses have the tools to be able to forecast cash flow. And you might think I'm asking a silly question, but actually there are many businesses who have been relatively cash rich or have been cash in, cash out. So so long as there's cash in the bank, I can cycle it around. So actually having some basic disciplines of being able to track what's coming in, what's going out, being able to predict, more importantly, what's coming in and what's going out. Because the one thing certain in life is that you're going to have to write out checks to cover costs. The thing that is always a challenge is the ability to recover or collect in debts or collect cash or actually generate the revenue. So my kind of first and basic piece of advice to everybody is, have you got the right tools, the right pieces of information and data to know what your current position is, and how is it that you're managing that on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis? And a number of our clients and a number of my colleagues will tell you that the first and most important, once you have some basic data, is having an effective weekly cash flow forecasting tool that you can predict, you can manage and predict your weekly outgoings and your weekly receipts. So just having control of what's going in and what's going out. So I think that's one aspect. I guess the other thing to then think about is using both a short-term rolling cash flow to manage your short-term cash, and also having some clear identified forecast that you've got in place in terms of what you think your business is going to achieve, both in terms of the need for cash and the need for growing revenue or delivering client sales, etc. One of the biggest things that I think is going to be a challenge coming out of the pandemic, and it's a nice problem to have in one regard, but it's actually again something people don't necessarily think about, is the need to have adequate working capital, because business is growing is fantastic. It's a great opportunity. People invest in growing businesses. If you're trading inventory, if you're trading stock, you'll go and invest in a lot of stock, or if you've got a customer base where the receivable cycle is over 30 days or 60 days, and you're having to pay out costs like people and overhead every 30 days, the growth in that business is fantastic, because you think, great, I'm going to make a lot of profit. But have you thought about the funding need to finance that working capital? Because what you don't want to do is necessarily overstretch yourself at the point at which you have the ability to capitalize. So I think there are the disciplines around cash flow forecasting, around managing your own forecast, and then finally managing your working capital, because there are some pretty easy ways, some pretty simple ways of managing working capital. Understanding what it is you are paying out for what revenues that you're owed, and trying to match off your working capital. Businesses have the ability to access asset-based finance, whether it's invoice discounting, it's factoring, in some cases, in some industries where there's some kind of stock finance. And back to the question earlier about resources, if you are dealing with and working with accounting advisors or even your local banking contact, then you should be able to access a number of these working capital facilities that helps you through that. But when I started out in practice nearly 30 years ago, one of the things I joined a practice where the partners were very good at going out and winning lots of clients and generating lots of headline income, but they got caught up in a serious working capital issue, and the firm that I joined, within 9 months, we had to go and find ourselves a rescue buyer because there was irresponsibility. And what was so very successful guys who you would coming from an accounting background, you think they'd have all the information, but it was something that caught them right at the depths of the previous recession in the early 90s. So it's easy to get caught with your proverbials down if you're not careful.
Thanks very much, Azim. I mean, was as running a decent-sized business, tell us a bit about how you've been managing cash flow and what your approach has been as a business owner.
So we've been quite fortunate in terms of the project-based work that we do, and although you're working with the largest some of the largest banks and brands out there. The key thing is making sure you have that conversation. You're ensuring that they can still be late in terms of paying. You might think that might not be the case with them, but sometimes they can be the worst. And it's really just been about making sure that you've got the right account management discussions with them. You're making them realize the importance of timely payments for you to be able to service them. And when you have made sure that you've got that communication going, there's an understanding of that. It really has kind of taken care of itself. But it's been having that conversation right at the beginning and maintaining that throughout. So we will have kind of monthly account meetings with those clients and making sure that we really stay on top of it. And actually that's something that our first major client was one of the major Swiss investment banks, and I remember very clearly the managing director very clearly said, right, are you being paid on time? Make sure that's something that you focus on. And I think that was really good advice, because that means that you can focus on delivery and doing what the client needs you to do, rather than scrambling around in terms of cash flow, making sure that you're paying your staff and frees you up to do what you need to do.
Great, thanks very much, Akbar. I said, there's been a few questions that you've been answering very kindly on what platforms to use digital ads on, and maybe also, tell us a little bit about SEO as well. So pass it over to you. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so I think in terms of like the free stuff, so people are asking like, how can I market to customers? So there are some free things you can do. So some free stuff is your local community, your friends, your existing customers, making sure you got the email addresses, getting them to refer, recommend, using Trustpilot to make aware any good reviews you've got, making you can't be what you can't see, so putting those reviews on your different social media platforms, putting the right hashtags on shareability when it comes to Facebook or Instagram, because when you use hashtags, that's the only way that posts get shared. Getting your friends to repost. You just got to hustle on social media if you want to do free stuff. Free stuff is all about hustle. You got to get people to link in, share it, do all that kind of stuff. There is SEO. So for example, taking the childcare kind of example, you could do blogs around childcare and, how you're doing things differently, or about the industry and, whatever it is. There again, taking what Doreen was saying, you want to make SEO content which is relevant and shareable. And so it's not about you and selling necessarily what you guys are doing, but actually how you can actually help other people. But SEO is a long game. So SEO can take between 1 month and 12 months to actually work. So it depends on how competitive your space is for SEO. Then kind of moving into kind of paid marketing, you got Google, Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, LinkedIn, Google Display Network. It all depends which channel your customer is at. So taking again the childcare example, I presume you're targeting mums who would be on Facebook, on Instagram. You maybe want to show them videos about your environment, your nursery, kids playing obviously without faces and all that kind of stuff. Happy environment. The creative that you create is really important. You've got the first, people say on video content, you've got 3 seconds to wow someone. So I think all of these things, things people need to consider as part of the marketing funnel. And there's different aspects that you should use, whether it's paid or organic, but the actual principles apply both paid or organic exactly in the same way, which you have to create engaging content that people want to share, and that people want to use, and it's got to be creative, and there's a lot of very good creatives and graphics designers out there. But again, happy to after, when we share details and stuff, if there's any specific examples that people want to talk over and discuss, more than happy to after the webinar as well.
I think testimonials as well, isn't it, is a great can be a great marketing tool for your business, isn't it?
Defo. I think, and with testimonials, with property, do you use video, or do you use text, or how do you do it? Because I think there's a number of ways, isn't it? Like in B2B space, I think you can do text, you can do video. I think there's nothing better than video.
In property, there's nothing better than video. So at the moment, obviously, because it's hard to go and view properties, everything happens on virtual viewings and things like that. So again, or if you want to show, the works, the property before and after, again, it happens, with videos and how the property used to be, pictures, videos, text, all of it together. But, there's nothing like a concrete, video, basically.
Yeah, and I think just a final point from me is that you want to you need to invest a bit in paid to get your sales funnel working. And then the idea is you want to build your organic to then kind of build your pipeline long term. So you don't want to have a business that survives only on paid, because then you're not going to have a profitable business long term. You want to create a business which is obviously sustainable with a long term customer base and
scalable as well.
Yeah, and that don't come back to you just because you're paying for it, but actually because they enjoy your service and your experience. But that comes long term.
Great, thanks, guys. So, Doreen, and there's been some of the questions we were asked before the webinar was about, females in business and empowerment, and what advice can you give for, some of the females out there who are thinking about, going to business? What advice can you give them? What confidence can you give them? It'll be great to hear, some of your advice.
I think for me, the thing that has really, because I come from a background where, my first language wasn't English. So it was a bit hard for me to sort of get through. But the best thing that I found was honestly, really, it was my mindset, and really being surrounded by people who gives you that positivity and who always encourages you, and going networking, go meet people, speak to people, speak about yourself, speak about what you do. Broadcast, what it is you're doing and what you're interested in as well. What's your why? I did a video recently on YouTube about what's your why. It's very important, I think, to be able to get your message out there, to first know what it is that you want to do and why you want to do it. But for female, I think, to be able to have that confidence is, to have the support system around you, to make sure that everybody around you, is aware of what you want to do, to have, the support system, like I said, read books, read lots of inspirational, motivational YouTube videos. That's what I did. I watched a lot of motivational videos as well. Keep doing that every now and again, because you get easily in your journey. Sometimes you feel lonely and you need that boost again. So just keep being engaged, with different content yourself. And yeah, just keep going. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't let anyone say that you're not as good as someone, or you're not as you're not good enough just because you're a female or anything like that. If you've got why, if you've got something, a value to add to someone, just go for it. That's my advice. Just don't stop.
Great, thanks very much, Doreen. Guys, we're coming up to the mass time, so we're just gonna wrap up. Look, I mean, I think we've all joined this webinar because we're all part of a community, basically, and I think that's what we all need to realise, is that from what we've said, the advice that we've all got, it's kind of all been learnt by experience, but also been learnt by talking to each other. So I think that we all have to remember that we need to network within amongst ourselves. I think everybody on this panel has done that with each other in some capacity. And that's kind of our strength in kind of numbers, right? So please, if you have questions, you need help, don't be shy. I think the panel members are here to help, and there's lots of other people that are here to help as well. So any questions you have, I mean, go through the organising committee and come back to them. And, you know, thank you to COEJ for organising this. You know, I think we all kind of need that confidence to get some advice, but also know there's people out there that we can talk to and, you know, who don't cost money to go and speak to. You know, it's just friendly advice. Also, COEJ have a webinar coming up. The next one is called Reinventing Yourself in the Digital World, How to Make the Most of Your Online Presence to Build Your Personal Brand and Business Profile. You know, a great follow-on from this webinar. You know, we've talked a lot about that, and the panel members will be Raza Huda, Mahmoud Maoji, Mama Jawad, and Fatima Devji. You know, they've all got great social media presences. So, you know, really do tune in for that, because, you know, I think, you know, getting inspiration from them will be great. So thanks everyone for, you know, for participating. You know, thanks for all the questions. And, you know, as I said, if you have any specific questions for panel members, you know, please get in touch from the organising committee, and I'm sure we'd be happy to help. Good afternoon, guys.
Thank you all the panelists and Riyad Sachedina for organizing this on behalf of COEJ. Hassan, Jazakallah, thank you very much.
Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.